Hi friends, welcome back. Algebra 2, Saxon, 3rd edition. We're talking lesson 4, distributive property. So we're going to take this guy, let's just jump right into it. We're going to distribute it to here and to here. Remember, when we multiply fractions, we multiply straight across top, straight across bottom, so we're going to do just that. We are left with 4a squared b negative 2 over b a 4 minus 4 times 3 is going to give me 12 b, and then I have 1a here, 2a's here, so a to the 3rd over b times a squared, b a squared. All right, so we got to clean this up. At the very least, I want to put it into alphabetical order, and I want to move any negative exponents downstairs. So I'm going to go right over here. We've got 4a squared over b squared, b a to the 4th minus 12. You'll get really fast at doing these. Now, straight away, though, I see there's a b upstairs, b downstairs. Let's just get rid of those like that. 12a3 over a squared. Okay, so over here, we can get rid of these guys and call this b to the 3rd, because remember, if no exponent's shown, there's a 1. So b squared, b1 gives us b to the 3rd. And then here, we can get rid of all 2 of those a's, which leaves us with just 2 a's here. So this becomes 4 over b3a2 minus, now over here I can get rid of these 2 a's, and that leaves me with just 1a up here. It's minus 12a over 1, so we'll just leave it as 12a like that. Okay, let's look at this next one. Again, we're going to distribute to here and to here. Now here's the fun thing, b to the 0 power is just 1, so just get rid of that, because anything times 1 is itself. So we can totally get rid of it, because if we multiply it, if we're adding it, yeah, it's just easier to get rid of it. Now, usually I like to move my negative exponents, switch those all around so that I don't have them. So let's do that first. So over here, we're going to be left with 1 over a to the 3rd c, and remember, if exponent's not shown, it's 1 over, and then here I can simplify, get rid of this 1c, and that leaves me with 1c here. So I have a squared b over c minus, and then here I'm going to swap those, so 3b squared over a squared. Okay, now this looks a little bit better for us to distribute. So we didn't distribute up here, we're going to distribute here. We did some cleanup first. So this now becomes upstairs a squared b over, this times this would be a to the 3rd c, and this is a 1, so it's going to be c squared, minus upstairs 1 times this is 3b squared over, this times this is going to be a to the 5th, c to the 1. All right, now over here I can do some cleanup. I see that I have a 2 a's up here, get rid of those, and that leaves me with 1a down here. So let's see, we now have, we've got b over a to the 1 c squared minus 3b squared over a5c1, and I don't see anything else that I can clean up here, so that is going to be my final answer. Now, in the back of the book, it's actually a little different. They keep their negatives, so this is totally correct. I am really a stickler on no negatives in your exponents, but in the back of the book, it's going to look like this. It's going to say a negative 1, b c2 minus 3c negative 5 over cb negative 2, or a negative 5, I don't know what I said there. But you'll see that this is the same thing as this, it's just that I moved those negative exponents, and I think that's a good habit to get into. So even though this is in the back of the book, don't do that. Get rid of them negative exponents. If you're a homeschooler and you need to explain to your parents or whomever is grading, they tell them to watch this video and then they'll understand. Okay, so let's try these two. These are solving equations. Now, for us to do this. Okay, so for this first one, remember when we have a negative outside of parentheses here, this is part of our invisible math. Remember, invisible math, I've spoken about it so far, is that if an exponent's not shown, it's a 1. So we're gonna make this a negative 1, and we're gonna distribute it to here and to here. So we end up with 12 minus 2x minus 5 equals negative 2, and there's a 1 here, but if we distribute it, it doesn't change anything. So we can just take it right out. So plus x minus 3. Okay, on both sides of the equation, let's combine like terms. So we get negative 2x, and then I have 12 and negative 5, so it's going to give me plus 7 equals, over here, negative 2, negative 3 is negative 5, plus x. Now, I have x's on both sides of the equation here. Personally, I like to move my x's to the left, so let's deal with our x's first. And I always advise that you deal with your x's first or your variables first, because in the event that your answer is 0, it'll make sense that you've dealt with your variables first. So that cancels out these. You're also in Algebra 2, so if you want to skip steps, you can do this. -7, that cancels out that. So I did a double step here. So either skip steps or do double step. So I get -3x equals 5, -12. Divide both sides by 3, x equals +4. And so there's a case where I'm skipping a step. I'm not dividing both sides by -3. That's fine by me. Okay, so looking at this guy, let's go ahead and distribute to here. So we get, remember, when we multiply fractions, multiply straight across top, straight across the bottom, 3 is over 1. So we end up with 15 over 6 minus 15 over 3x equals, and there's a negative here, so distribute that to both. We get +1/2 plus -x. Whoops, it should have been -x, but I'm going to turn that into a fraction. Negative times positive is a negative. Either way. Now, the reason I did that is because we're going to do what's called clearing your fractions. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 chunks here, and all those chunks I want to have the same common denominator, which is going to be 6. So if you see, I'm going to need to multiply this by 2, and if I do it downstairs, I have to do it upstairs. Also, I'm going to bump my variable upstairs. It can be either upstairs or in the middle of your fraction. It cannot be downstairs unless we're talking a little bit later in Algebra 2 when we talk about rational equations. So, times this by 3, times this by 3. Oh, and times this by 6, times this by 6. So now here's what I've got. 15 over 6 minus 30x over 6. So that's what I'm saying. See how I moved it upstairs? That's totally fine. It doesn't have to stay in the middle. Equals 3 over 6 minus, instead of plus and negative, that was silly, 6x over 6. Now, do all of my chunks have the same common denominator? Yes. Do I have an equal sign, meaning this is an equation and not an expression? Yes. Then in that case, I can cross these out. Can't do that if it's an expression. You can only do it if it's an equation. So don't come for me if you do that. So cross all those out. I'm left with 15 minus 30x equals 3 minus 6x. I'm going to add 6x to both sides. And then I'm also going to minus 15 from both sides. And so that leaves me with negative 24x equals negative 12. Divide by negative 24, divide by negative 24. X equals negative divided by negative is positive. 12 over 24 reduces down to 1/2. So my answer there is 1/2. Excellent. Okay, so then there's one other thing that I want to talk about when we are skipping steps, right? It's the changing sides, change your signs. So here's how it works. If I'm moving something to the other side, I just need to remember to change the sign. So this is a negative, and I'm going to move it to the other side. So what I'm really doing in my head is 7 plus 2. So that gives me x equals 9. I know you know how to solve that equation, but I just wanted to show you we're changing the sign by moving it. Solving for p. That means I need to move this guy and this guy to the other side. So p equals, I'm going to keep that 7y, and this now becomes plus 3x. This now becomes minus 4. Okay, so my dog started barking. Sorry, I paused there for a minute. Okay, I don't know why I love my whiteout. I'm like, oh, I got to get rid of that scribble. So a piece of paper that I'm just going to end up throwing away anyway when I'm done. Solving for y here. So we're going to say 3y equals, we're going to change this to positive 2x. We're going to change that to a negative 5x. And then we're going to divide every chunk by 3. Now, I choose to divide every chunk. I think that's a better way of doing this. So it looks like this. However, back at this stage where it looked like this, you could just divide this by 3 and then divide this whole thing by 3. So you're left with y equals 2x minus 5 over 3. However, if this was a linear equation, like a line we were trying to graph, this makes way more sense than this would make sense. So I think this is a better habit to get into, but that's entirely up to you. Okay, then the practice for this lesson. Here are your 2 practice problems. Give those a shot, come on back, and then let's go through them together. All right, so for this guy, I'm gonna get rid of this 0 power, and I'm gonna fix my negatives. So I get 2 over a4c1, and that leaves me with 2ab2c over x squared minus, and I'm gonna flip these guys around, b4a2. Okay, so now that I've cleaned that guy up, I'm going to multiply. So distribute to here and all the way over to here. So I get 4a 1b2c1. If you need to put that in there, that's totally fine. And then I have a4c1x2 minus 2b4 over a456c1. All right, so can I do some cleanup? Yes, over here it looks like I can. I can get rid of this c and this c, and then I get rid of one a upstairs, which leaves me with just 3 a's downstairs. So now I have 4b squared over a3x2 minus 2b4 over a6c1. I look at that to make sure that I've done everything. Looks like I have, so that's as good as it's going to get. All right, let's solve this guy. So before we clear our fractions, we do have to distribute. You notice I did that on the last one. So I have now 2 over 8 minus 6 over 2x equals negative, so that's going to be positive 1 over 4x minus 2. Now, I can do some reducing here. I've got 1 over 4 minus 3x over 1 equals 1x over 4 minus 2 over 1. Notice I boosted my x's back up into my into my numerator, so that they're up there and out of the way. So on this guy, again, I'm going to multiply, my common denominator is 4, so I need to multiply that by 4, that by 4, this by 4, this by 4. So when I do that, I now have 1 over 4 minus 12x over 4 equals 1 over 4, 1x over 4, minus 8 over 4. Do all my chunks have the same common denominator? Yes, they do. Cancel those out because I also have an equal sign. Don't do it if you don't. Now I have 1 minus 12x equals 1x minus 8. So I'm going to minus x minus x. At the same time, I'm going to minus 1. So I get negative 13x equals negative 9. Divide by negative 13, divide by negative 13, and I end up with x equals 9 over 13. There is my answer. All right. Any questions, leave them down below. Otherwise, I will see you next time.